What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so I was going through my comments this morning on my videos, my more recent videos, talking about Ben Wallace and Paul Pierce being selected for next year's Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame class. And I saw the comment from Legendary about Chris Webber, and I was just filled with joy and elation. I saw LB's video, and what I'm saying, shout out to LB. He's another one that's been beating the drum about Chris Webber and him being in the Hall of Fame. James as well, Mahari. He's finally in, and it's long overdue. You know what I'm saying, Chris? You should have been in 8 years ago, or at least 6 or 7 years ago. Because I get it, politics plays a role in these things. I know why they've been holding him out. It has to do with something that happened when he was in college. Okay? But if you're going to penalize him, you got to penalize every motherfucking body who's ever been accused of kickbacks. Okay? That should not have kept him out this long. Okay? Because whether you want to look, I don't want to go there, but the guy that's the face of the NBA right now, I remember when he was in high school, they were accusing his mother of getting kickbacks. So is that going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame? No. So this is the thing, man, about Chris Webber. For his career, he averaged almost 21 points, almost 10 rebounds, and almost 5 assists per game. He was an all-around player. When he came into his own, by the time he was with the Sacramento Kings, not only did he help to turn around that franchise, he was the cornerstone of that franchise, but he was considered the most skilled big man in the league overall. And I don't understand how that's been turned around all of a sudden. Like the narrative is, oh, this is a guy that just didn't get it done. I had to go back in the vault. I had to, even Too Raw for TV had to study a little bit more to bring the ether in this video. Because Too Raw for TV getting a little old now. Sometimes I'm forgetting little things, you know what I'm saying? So I have to go back and restudy some things to keep my mind sharp. So those who say, man, he was only a 5-time NBA All-Star, other guys were 10, 11. So you have to remember this. The All-Star game, even though I think fans are way out of pocket now, but it's always essentially a popularity contest. And if you go back to when he was playing with the Bullets, he was putting up numbers. He was putting up 19 points and 9 or 10 rebounds per game, dishing out, 3.5, 4.5 assists. He was putting up numbers. But the Bullets weren't a really good team. He didn't have a lot of pieces around him, okay? And also, he was playing in a conference that had Penny Hardaway, who was an extraordinarily popular player before his injuries. Michael Jordan came back. No, I don't have to even bring that up, you know what I'm saying? And he was playing in a conference that had Scottie Pippen and Grant Hill. So these are four guys that are usually the perennial vote leaders. As a matter of fact, if you look at the All-Star game from 95 to 98 or so in the East, they had a 3-guard starting 5 rotation. They didn't even have a power forward. They just had, Grant Hill playing like a point forward. And then the center would either be Shaq, or after Shaq went to Lakers, it was maybe Mutombo or something. But yeah, the starting lineup for the All-Stars would be like Shaq, Grant Hill, Scottie Pippen, Jordan, and Penny Hardaway. And then, Chris Webber might be a reserve. That's why he wasn't on some of those All-Star teams. That's why Reggie Miller was only on 4 All-Star teams because of the competition that he had to deal with in the Eastern Conference. You have to dig deeper and dissect things before you just go off of something on the surface. The numbers don't tell everything when it comes to these players. But what this is true about Chris Webber. He was the number 1 pick, I believe, in the 1993 draft. And when he got to Golden State, they were a team that were faltering at that time. Injuries, trades. But he helped to take that team to the first round of playoffs against the defending Western Conference champions, the Phoenix Suns. He had an infamous dunk, which is here, or a legendary dunk, which is pictured here over Charles Barkley in his prime. Now, due to injuries to Tim Hardaway and others, and Chris Mullin breaking down, and him having issues with head coach Don Nelson, Chris Webber didn't last long. 1 year, I think, and then he went to the then Washington Bullets, who were a lowly franchise. They weren't good at all. You know what I'm saying? The Bullets hadn't been to the playoffs, I believe, since 1988 when they had Moses Malone. So they were a terrible franchise. In a couple of years, they had a team that not only went to the playoffs in 1997, the last year that they were known as the Bullets, but they played the Bulls to the wire. And I'm talking about the 69 win 1997 Chicago Bulls. They played them to the wire in each game. Game 1 went down, I think, to the wire. Game 2, it took Jordan scoring 55 points to beat them by single digits. Game 3, it took a Pippen dunk and one dunk on Scottie Pippen to seal the deal. Jordan called them, this team that comprised of Chris Webber, George Mirasan, Juwan Howard, Rod Strickland, Calbert Cheaney. He called them the team of the future. Unfortunately, the very next year, they dealt with injuries. Then they traded Chris Webber to the Sacramento Kings. And at that time, it was seen as career suicide to go to Sacramento. Most people assumed that Washington got the better of that trade. They're getting Mitch Richmond, a perennial 23 to 25 point per game scorer. And Mitch Richmond, the problem was he was just on a bad team all those years. And Chris Webber's going to go and be on a team where he might put up numbers, but they're not going to do anything. But that wasn't the case. By the time Washington acquired Mitch Richmond, he was slowing down. And it's one of the best trades the Sacramento Kings ever pulled off. Chris Webber came to the abbreviated 98-99 season focused, in shape, and he went on to lead the NBA in rebounds per game. He had a dominant campaign in 1999, and he led the resurgent Sacramento Kings to the playoffs at a winning record. The first time they had a winning record in I don't know how long, maybe over a decade. And he should have been considered at least league MVP that year. His best year, I believe, was 2000, 2001. I think he averaged something like 27 points, maybe 12 or 13 rebounds, dished out over 5, close to 6 assists per game. And this is a different NBA. This isn't an NBA where, a guy like Nikola Jokic can pretty much run the offense and rack up assist numbers. Someone thought I was being ridiculous when I said in today's league, with Chris Webber's passing ability, he could average a triple double. Chris Webber himself said it out of his mouth. If you looked at an NBA roundtable a couple years ago, he said that in today's NBA, especially if he was playing with a guy like Shaquille O'Neal, where he was supposed to play, because he got drafted by Orlando, but during drafting they traded his rights to Golden State in exchange for Penny Hardaway, because Shaq wanted Penny Hardaway because of Penny Hardaway's ability when they was filming the movie Blue Chips. But he said if he had played with it like Shaq, he probably could have averaged a triple double. Now I don't know if that's the case back then because the way the game was played, but the way the game is played now, yes, trust me, if Nikola Jokic could do it, I'm certain Chris Webber could do it. Laker fans may like to hear me say this, but the Sacramento Kings were robbed of an NBA championship in 2002 in the most egregiously and insultingly rigged game in NBA history. Okay? And Chris Webber, for a 10-year period, was a top 5 power forward in the NBA at the very least. And for a 5 or 6 year period, he was a top 3 power forward, along with Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. Now, after a debilitating leg injury that he suffered in the mid 2000s, he was no longer the same player, but because of his skill set, he was still able to be an asset to various teams for a couple of more years before he retired. I think it was after the 2007-2008 NBA season. Now, are there those who criticize Chris Webber? Yeah, most of them are people who say things like this. He never won an NBA championship. Well, if you're going to limit it to just that, there's a lot of people who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, right? You know, they also go on the fact that he had that infamous moment in college where he called timeout when it wasn't any available timeouts, and it led to them ultimately losing that big pivotal game. Okay, yes, that was a big mistake, and it haunted Chris Webber for a very long time. Okay, at the end of the day, if you watch this guy play, he was an absolute beast out there on the court. Absolute beast. Unfortunately, Chris Webber had a career that existed at the same time as players like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Prime Penny Hardaway, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, later on Shaq and Kobe at their best, and they went up against that team. They couldn't quite beat that team, but they gave the Lakers fits. Okay? And in 2002, you could argue that they should have beaten the Lakers. And if it wasn't for so much help from the officiating, they would have eliminated the Lakers in 6 games. That's just my opinion. Chris Webber had to go up against so much competition at that time, not only as far as stars, but even in his position throughout his career. I'm talking about Charles Barkley. I'm talking about Karl Malone. I'm talking about Shawn Kemp. Later on, Antonio McDyess. You know what I'm saying? Uh, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan. Later on, Dirk Nowitzki. Later on, Zach Randolph. Okay, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, and many more. This guy had to go up against so much competition at the power forward position alone in his NBA career, let alone the great players that were denying other great players a shot at a championship. Rasheed Wallace is another one. Dennis Rodman, Big Ben Wallace. And the list goes on and on and on. So, yes, he is deservedly a Hall of Famer. Not to mention the dominance of Fab Five in college. So, yes, he is a certified first. He should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. If you're going to punish him because of the scandal, okay, a couple of years, I get it. But 8 years was too much. But finally, Chris Webber will be in the 2021 NBA Hall of Fame. And this is what I want to say, because I was actually resigning myself to believing that they weren't going to select him again. Now that they have selected Chris Webber, I could be wrong. Maybe they changed this rule, but I thought that the rule was they usually only selected 3 NBA players per class. Now maybe they changed that since I last saw that. But if that's still the case, they may delay Chris Bosh being elected or selected until maybe next year. We'll have to see. I do want to say this too. After looking at Tony Kukoc's um, resume, I do believe he should be a Hall of Famer. Now I know people will have a knee-jerk reaction to that, and they'll think about his NBA career and think I'm being a Bulls homer on that one. No, people have to understand something. Unlike the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame or the NFL Football Hall of Fame, uh, this isn't just about the pro NBA league or the ABA. This is the basketball. This is the International Basketball Hall of Fame. So you have to consider so many different things. Yes, you consider Tony Kukoc's NBA career. Was his numbers unbelievable? No. He did win 3 championships. He was a Six Man of the Year award winner in 95, 96. Now that in itself doesn't warrant Hall of Fame status. But if you look at Tony Kukoc's resume overall, he was a tremendous international player for Croatia. I mean, multiple champion, tournament, MVP. You have to look at his resume. When you look at his resume, yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And maybe eventually he will get there. When the drum beat or the drum, the drum beat becomes too strong to keep resisting that. But right now, Chris Webber is a Hall of Famer, and whoever don't like it, don't give a fuck, because he should have been in years ago. Okay, and that's pretty much all I got to say. And please don't say anything stupid in the comment section like, well, if he gets in, that must mean Draymond Green will get in. If you compare Draymond Green to Chris Webber, man, I swear to God, man, I'm gonna strangle your ass.